Well, here I am making up for the deleted excerpt from my video which the BBC complained about copyright infringement. I was using one of their documentaries with some added material by other commentators to give you the official denunciations of social Darwinism, and I wanted to do that because it's very concise and nicely done, and there's some wonderful comments put in by other people who have alternative viewpoints to Darwinism, which is not the only way of thinking, by the way, about the world. I'll just quote something said by Sir Bob Geldof, the knighted rock star, who may not be really as altruistic as you hope. He did say on Sydney television just recently that three great writers who influenced the 20th century, which was a pretty bad century, three great writers that influenced it were Darwin, Freud and Marx, and that's probably fairly well said. And Darwin shapes our thinking far more than we realise, and to the effect that it's essentially become a religious tenet of our society. Whether it's absolutely and ultimately and totally true is still a big question. There's a beautiful video I could show you about a man peering inside the developing fetus with advanced MRI imaging cameras, and he said he was continually challenged by the fact that this must be divinity in this human body that he was looking at in its absolutely fabulous intricacy. But what we're talking about here is social Darwinism, and the fact that Darwin himself said you couldn't extrapolate from the animal kingdom to human society, and he repeated the warnings about it, but that didn't stop generations of political parties and the middle class and the elites forever adopting bits of social Darwinism that made them feel better, advancing their causes against other social groups. In the documentary, they talked about 19th century English people basically sort of deciding that children put in workhouses at 7 years old are there for Darwinian evolution reasons, and that makes it okay. It's scientifically kosher. It's all right now. Okay, so we can stop campaigning on behalf of children. It's the natural order of things, you see. Not very advanced thought. Not very advanced thought at all. Simplistic short-term thought, of course, we would all say there. Richard Dawkins is shown in this video excerpt that you're not going to see, marvelling at a handful of dirt and how the fact that there's 25 billion bacteria in it, and that he himself is only one, and thus he is insignificant, you see. I'm afraid to say that's a common thought mistake made by militant atheists, skeptics, Darwinists, all alike. They do tend to see their self-worth in terms of other numbers being far greater than them, totally forgetting perhaps that you're actually a billion bacteria and a trillion cells or something. There's 10 to the 13th, 10 to the 14th cells in bacteria. So Richard Dawkins is not really a lot smaller than that lump of dirt. He sees himself as a one, but he's a mass of bacteria, fungus, and cells. He totally forgot that when he's making his profound hand in the dirt description of life, the universe and everything. In fact, something I found about so many militant atheists and the like is that they seem to be susceptible to being talked down to being worthless, because any large numbers, he also talks about large numbers in the astronomy universe situation, where you've got, say Andromeda 400 billion light years across or something ridiculous like that. Therefore I'm insignificant, my life is worthless. It makes them feel bad about themselves. They seem to have a tendency towards self-loathing. You are insignificant, all these big numbers and things say to you. But what if you didn't use numbers? What if you didn't use numbers to measure your own self-worth? It's an easy workaround, isn't it, to feel much better about yourself and not be injured by large astronomical and large biological numbers. Yet it never seems to occur to these tunnel-visioned Darwinists. The BBC piece on social Darwinism, which is an utter nonsense, does make it's been modified toward the end. I enjoyed that bit you're not allowed to see. But I'll tell you what it's about. It's about the Church of Darwinism, and it actually starts off as a Christian church, having the cross cut out of the glass window and the face of Adolf Hitler, and Darwin put in its place, which is a kind of rude thing, because that's what we have done. We've made gods of Darwin. This society has made gods of Darwin, and the darker power of Adolf Hitler used Darwin's influence and people's ready acceptance of it to do the evil that he did. So that's the evil century we've had, influenced by writers Darwin, Marx and Freud, that somebody was referring to the other day in Sydney, namely Sir Bob Geldof. Hello there, Steve here in Sydney of the lay gnosis website truebluehealer.com. I've just brought to you a little piece of a video essay made by someone else, not me, and it's about the very misguided concept of social Darwinism. And from the outset, Charles Darwin told everybody, you can't extrapolate from the animal kingdom to human society. Because we operate on a radically different principle. So there's really no excuse to go ripping and tearing at each other and starving each other together in groups and that sort of stuff, and claim it to be a scientific process justified by the natural order of things. It's completely false, okay? You were shown in the excerpt where eugenicism, social Darwinism has led us, started in America in 1912 with sterilisation of people with low IQs and low incomes, that sort of thing, no income. And it gradually became, you know what, the Holocaust in the 1940s, all justified by Darwinism. And an unwarranted transplantation of the concept from the animal kingdom to the human society that we live in. And anyone with half a brain can see that you can't extrapolate from the animal kingdom to human society, because we are radically different. While animals might rip and tear at each other on a sight, there's also much evidence they cooperate with each other. And human society is definitely not a wild kingdom. If a lion breaks its leg, it's usually dead within 6 to 8 days from starvation. If you break your leg, you are not put out to be finished off by predators, are you? You actually end up in a luxury hospital. In fact, all our casualties, most of our casualties are saved, aren't they? So radically different to the animal kingdom. Any thinking person just looking around themselves would see that if you lose $850 billion and you're a banker, nothing will happen to you. You will not be imprisoned. There's no Darwinistic put down of you. You're not marginalised. You're not executed. You're just given more money to carry on doing your criminal activities. So we're living in a kind of nanny state, aren't we? The best analogy for human society seems to be that we are farmed. We are farmed for our personal details, our work energy output, and predators are removed from our environment. There are very few predators. When did you last run from a lion? So social Darwinism is something that only appeals to non-thinking, shallow-minded people. Which brings me to this thing we've just looked at, and who's actually practicing that concept today, wanting to resurrect it. And it may surprise you, or probably it won't, in light of behaviours you have seen on the internet. Ben Emlyn-Jones is a radio disc jockey on the internet out of Oxford in the UK. And although he's got a radio station name which is rather humorous, Hospital Porters Against the New World Order, HPAN Woe, he does do some pretty serious commentaries on the social behaviour of skeptocrats, the skeptocracy, the people who want to impose their narrow-minded, black and white, thoughtless thinking, bleak, anemic, feeble-minded thinking on everybody else. He talks about this, and he said the recent banning, one of his editorials, it's on a video and he talks about it in writing somewhere, the banning of Rupert Sheldrake and Graham Hancock from the TED lectures is a really sad state. It really tells us something about the intentions and the social behaviours of the skeptocracy, which is a kind of infesting parasite running right through society. It's hard to get rid of. They seem to be the under-functioning people that a Darwinist society might want to get rid of, if a Darwinist society really existed. Yet strangely, they do want to propose it. They do want to put it forward and establish it. And I'm going to tell you now about a leading figure, James Randi, who in his old age now, he's like a senior kind of saint and he can do no wrong, and he's a sort of an elder statesman of the skeptocracy. And whatever he says is written down in somebody's book and published immediately. And lo and behold, no surprise at all, even though after Tim Bolan, you thought you'd heard it all after Tim Bolan said that the skeptocrats' behaviour is something like hate groups identified by the FBI. Okay, FBI published a description of hate groups and how they behave at different levels of activity, and Tim Bolan informs us that it exactly fits the so-called skeptic groups. They're just basically hate groups, you see. And then, following on from that, I'd already found myself, I'd been calling a lot of people out of JREF a hate site anyway, and I'd been telling them that they were in fact reminiscent of the Ku Klux Klan, you see. I sort of said that just like a few times in passing, and other people have noticed this Ku Klux Klan style behaviour from the skeptics. And I've got a little video here of a Daily Grail editorial where they quote the latest book about James Randi's maverick sayings, and it's everything that Ben Emlyn Jones is warning us about, that this skeptocratic imposition of fascist thinking on as many people as you can via head kicking on the internet has a price to pay, and the price to pay is the fact that James Randi comes out in this book just recently published as a chest-beating, raging eugenicist. Now, I didn't pick this up at first, someone else did. They read the book. The Daily Grail read it and did an editorial on it and quoted excerpts from Randi's rantings. And Randi declares himself a chest-beating, aggressive, angry, as usual, always angry, eugenicist. And he actually talks about two types of people he wants to get rid of. People who underfunction and don't think properly. They should be taken out. They should be put in a place where Darwinian natural selection can take them off the planet, essentially. I'm paraphrasing, and that's what he says. It's exactly quoted in the little video coming. And the other one is, all you people with hereditary brain disorders and things, you should be shown about how evil your breeding could be in a certain place also. Now, this is eugenics from the 1930s again, being reiterated by James Randi, and it's discussed in some detail by this Daily Grail editorial, and this is exactly what Ben Emlyn Jones has been talking about all along. Randi has basically done, on cue, what Ben Emlyn Jones has been talking about. The consequences of extremist behaviour carried on all over the place, seemingly being legitimate. I'll just show you the video now, and you can have a look at that. Okay, just watch this Daily Grail editorial about James Randi's eugenicist ranting.
Greg Taylor at the Daily Grail on chilling comments from James Randi. Let survival of the fittest act itself out on those with low IQ and mental aberrations. I've previously posted here about the social Darwinist-leaning comments of James the Amazing Randi, such as the entry on his website, where he supported the legalization of drugs, apparently largely for the simple reason that it would kill off a lot of people he doesn't like. Those individuals who were stupid enough to rush into the arms of the mythical houris and or Adonises they would expect to greet them would simply do so, and die by whatever chemical or biological fate would overcome them. The principle of survival of the fittest would draconically prove itself for a couple of years, after which natural selection would weed out those for whom there is no hope, except through our forbearance. Randi says, any weeping and wailing over the poor little kids who would perish by immediately gobbling down pills and injecting poison is summoning up crocodile tears, in my opinion. They would, and presently do, mature into grown-up idiots, and Darwin would be appalled that his lessons were ignored. Apart from contradicting his previous comments about crocodile tears for the poor little kids who would mature into grown-up idiots, Randi here comes straight out and nails his colors to the mast. Sensible, rational people like him, apparently, are innocents who don't deserve to be affected by his extreme views of survival of the fittest, but everyone else is fair game. Why do they deserve this fate? Because, says Randi, these are stupid people. And if they can't survive, they don't have the IQ, don't have the thinking power to be able to survive. It's unfortunate. I would hate to see it happen, but at the same time, it would clear the air. Please to read that paragraph again. If you did, then get at least a metaphorical shiver down your spine. I don't know where your head is at, so, once more. Randi says these are stupid people. And if they can't survive, they don't have the IQ, don't have the thinking power to be able to survive. It's unfortunate. I would hate to see it happen, but at the same time, it would clear the air. Oh, and people with inherited mental illness. Randi also apparently wants the contraception squad sent out for you. I think that people with mental aberrations, who have family histories of inherited diseases and such, that something should be done seriously to educate them, to prevent them from procreating. I think they should be gathered together in a suitable place, and have it demonstrated for them what their procreation would mean for the human race. I know some other folk who were gathered together in a suitable place, because another bunch of people didn't want them contaminating the human race. Trying my hardest not to invoke Godwin here, but when you're traveling in the same territory. Comments on Randi revelations in the book, The Heretics' Adventures with the Enemies of Science. I had always thought the JREF approach was essentially fascist, but to see the actual philosophy behind its progenitor, so glaringly laid out, has been a real eye-opener. Randi appears to have snapped in some fashion. I think the weight of evidence in support of ESP, and the paranormal, in general, is now so overwhelming that it must be driving him crazy. Another comment on the skin color of skeptics. Yes, truly brilliant, Ellen. The joke is that in a real social Darwinist setting, the flabby old white guys that make up the atheist/skeptic community would be hunted down and used for tallow and offal. Note that none of these apparatchiks can summon the courage or the basic human decency to call Randi out on rantings that would literally make go Bales blush. Not a single one. Another comment. So, after quoting a BBC documentary discrediting social Darwinism, this commentator says, the fact of the matter is that Randi's beliefs in how survival of the fittest is how evolution helped us become the masters of the world is just completely untenable. It was compassion and altruism that which helped our species free itself from the merciless shackles of biological determinism and helped us take control of our destiny. Quote from Joseph Symes, founder of the modern atheist movement, same old theme. The strong, the cunning, the swift must survive, while the weak, the slow, the dull, and those with no artificial advantage must of necessity go to the wall. Yes, the brutal truth bids me say, they must be stamped out. From Joseph Symes, founder of the modern atheist movement, reiterating James Randi's eugenics call. Potent question is put here. I will remind everyone that not one single skeptic or atheist has come out and condemned these lunatic Nazi ravings by the unchallenged figurehead of their movement, James Randi. Not one. Why? Another insightful comment here on the color of skeptics again. There are many junkies who live to a ripe old age, by the way. It is not at all necessarily the case that doing drugs is suicide. That is Randi's hope. But take a look at the complexion of the skeptic movement. There are clan rallies that are more ethnically diverse. Drugs are a code word for non-whites to right-wingers, especially the fringe right-wingers, like Randi, who espouse eugenics and genocide. Read those comments in that context. Take a look at the complexions of the skeptic movement. Another comment on the color of skeptics. Not an insult, the unvarnished truth. What Randi is espousing is doctrinaire Nazi eugenics. All the more chilling when you look at the unbroken sea of pasty white faces at Randi's amazing meetings. But in general, I think that Darwinism, survival of the fittest, should be allowed to act itself out. As long as it doesn't interfere with me and other sensible, rational people who could be affected by it. Innocent people. In other words, James Randi. Quote from Hitler: "The exposure of the sick, weak, deformed children, in short, their destruction, was more decent, and in truth 1,000 times more human than the wretched insanity of our day which preserves the most pathological subject." Adolf Hitler. I thought for years that the skeptopath movement is nothing but politically correct white supremacy, and this goes a long way in proving that. Another observation on the skin color of skeptics. And the JREF's Facebook page has a picture of the audience from its 2011's Club Fest. There isn't a single non-white face in the photo, not one. How do you put on a convention in America, in the 21st century, and not have a single person of color in evidence? I've seen more diversity party rallies. So maybe it's not hyperbole. So we have from the leader of the atheist skeptic movement, James Randi, advocating social Darwinism, yes, Nazi eugenics advocacy. It's fitting well with the internet behaviors of skeptics, social terrorism, Nazi-style, SA brown shirt goose-stepping, head-picking of religious people and proponents of telepathy and ESP, such as Sheldrake and Hancock, banned from TED, rather like early 1930s Nazi Germany. I must say I have often condemned JREF as a hate site, as it fits the FBI definition of hate groups, pointed out by Tim Bolin. I have also compared them to the Ku Klux Klan, numerous times. Last but not least, we have the potent observations by a number of skeptic watchers at the Daily Grail, here quoted, that JREF is a virtual white supremacist group, as there are simply only lily white faces in their group photos at James Randi's amazing events. Take a look at the complexions of the skeptic movement. That seems to complete the rendering of the picture of the skeptic movement, and it is very ugly. Number 1, white supremacist hate group. Number 2, mentally feeble social Darwinists, eugenicists, verbally violent, internet head kickers. Number 3, hate-filled toward religion and ESP, banning of Sheldrake and Hancock from TED as examples. Number 4, and we can't ignore their hate of women, their extreme misogyny, thousands of death threats uttered to Rebecca Watson. On record, from an amazing Randi meeting. Can you think of any skeptic movement virtues, dear reader? Laughing out loud, there must be one, surely. I'm trying, still trying, can you? Just as a footnote, Portugal legalized drugs and Randi's social Darwinism/natural selection didn't eliminate lots of defective people drug users. So much for Randi's critical thinking. The Heretics, Adventures with the Enemies of Science is the book quoting much of James Randi's eugenics rant. Amazon. Some links below this video.
So there you've just heard about James Randi, the raving eugenicist, and how eugenics doesn't go away. It seems to appeal continuously, even though it's a complete and utter nonsense. It seems to appeal continuously to give people political courage to do things that they wouldn't normally do. It legitimises evil, basically, toward other people. And the thing in common to all of these eugenicists seems to be anger. James Randi is a mild one. There's another one called Ted Turner who started up CNN. Remember the news channel? 24-hour news, first time ever. He's a major landowner in the United States and probably thinks he's one of the Darwinist elite because he was born rich. Therefore that proves he can do anything, he sort of gives him permission to do sort of anything he likes. Have any thoughts? And he has put in writing that he would like to see, because he's so, what can I say, aggrieved and angry, like James Randi, so aggrieved and angry at the population that there's just too many of them on the planet, that he wants to eliminate 95% of the human race. Now, this is apparently so he can get a good night's sleep, because he lays awake in bed at night worrying about the population explosion. So do the Rockefeller family. They've been doing it since the 1940s. All they do is lose sleep continuously over the population explosion. And another one, of course, I'm sure you've heard of is the eugenicist none other than Bill Gates, who wants to spend billions of dollars preventing people from breeding to help the population problem. Going to spend billions doing that, and this is going to be what he calls reproductive health. And he talks about trying to cut back, hold back, reduce the giddying population growth covering the planet, and he's spending the remainder of his life and the remainder of his money at finding ways to stop people breeding with all kinds of vaccination programs. No wonder people are nervous about vaccination programs. And can I say that anger is one of the personal anger, biochemical internal anger in a person, right? In a person, something they feel when they wake in the morning. The anger in their own body chemistry strangely convinces them that it's people over there on the other side of the planet who are the problem, why they can't get a good night's sleep. Ted Turner does this. The Rockefellers do it. James Randi does it. I found somewhere I found it. James Randi complains about having to pay taxpayers' money to keep all these under-functioning people going. These people don't have the right IQ and don't think properly and rationally. That's code for religious people. So there's always a lot of anger behind eugenics, and basically it's just cruelty and eliminating your enemies. Implied in all the writings. I'm sure you've seen that implied in what James Randi's been writing. Next video I'll be talking about where these Nazis are going. They've already started a campaign elsewhere on the electronic medium called TED, T-E-D, where they try and get everyone to promote phones, iPhones, that sort of thing, communications, all that technology, all that sort of jazz. Nothing much wrong with that, I suppose. But it looks like, I'll be talking about this, it seems from what their actual actions, you don't listen to what people say and claim and write to you, you look at their actions to judge what they're really doing and what they really are. And it looks like CSICOP, the skeptic organisation, has infiltrated TED and is controlling it. And I'll be explaining how that happens and the surprising response to it from a bunch of academics. Okay, so Steve here in Sydney, and I'll see you in the next video on this very interesting subject of skeptics infiltrating other organisations. See you there.